new members, and would you introduce yourself and proceed with your question?
Sure. Steve Bernstein. Thank you all for your public service. Two-part question here. Whoever wins this mayor's race will have big shoes to fill. So my question is this. Which of Mayor Buckhorn's achievements it was most significant for which he did not get enough credit? And part two is, which achievement for which he did get credit would you have handled differently and how?
I'm stuck with the mic on that one, right? I think the West River project is stunning. I've been active in West River for a very long time, in West Tampa, and I know for the last 50 years that every mayor has ignored West Tampa. And I think Bob Buckhorn did a stunning job in bringing forward the redevelopment of West Tampa. And I think that's just extraordinary. I think he also was very aggressive about procurements of city properties and got things going, like the hotel, like the waterworks, those sorts of things. So I really admire that. What was the second question? Second part, Steve?
The second part is, which achievement for which he does get credit would you have handled differently and how?
I really don't know the answer to that one. Sorry, I'm not quite sure I know what that question is, but I just have to think through it. I try to be careful on these things, and I can't answer that at the moment. Thanks.
And Steve, I don't think that there's many things that Bob Buckhorn doesn't take credit for. So the first part of your question is he got a little bit tough to do. And believe me, I would say that to his face. He knows it. We joke about it all the time. Really, the completion of the Riverwalk was a great achievement. It was something that was started by Mayor Bill Poe many years ago, and you know, the completion of it, we had a lot of help from the Obama administration. We dream about Obama, myself and Eric Cohen and the mayor, of how much of a cooperation we had with that administration. But I think that has transformed our downtown, and it was a great achievement. You know, there's very few things that he's done that has not been a good example of bringing in business. I think that because of the Great Depression that we had in our lifetime, it really has been about bringing more businesses in here, and he's talked it up quite a bit, and I think he's been a real success of making sure that that's worked, and he should be proud about that. Thank you.
I too think he's done a great job, and that his legacy is about the downtown. And you all know about the $35 million park, which is of his legacy, and that was done, and the result was neglecting East and West Tampa. And we need to do something about our neighbors. We need to spread our prosperity around the whole city, not any one spot. And I am going to focus on East Tampa and West Tampa. They feel neglected, and they have been neglected. Just drive around that area. Thank you.
I've said this before, that I think what Bob Buckhorn has done for our city is that whether you like him or you hate him, he's done an exceptional job getting Tampa to fall back in love with Tampa. Right? Like, there's more excitement, there's more passion in this city than we've had in quite a long time. The part where I would say I would have done it differently is that right now, the city only grants 2% of their contracts to minority-owned businesses. And if that doesn't make you gasp, you're not paying attention. Because that's under his control. And under my control, I'll be able to fix that this quickly. It's just as simple as going to the list of the minority-owned businesses and giving them their due. 25% of small businesses owned by black people, 25% owned by Latinos and Hispanics, and they get 2%? That's not right. And under my administration, we're going to fix that right away. Thank you.
It's a good question, Steve. Thanks for asking it. I remember when Bob Buckhorn was running in 2011, and he would say things on the campaign trail like, "I'm going to give Tampa wings." And swear to God, I would think, what does he mean by that? But looking back now, I see what he meant, and I think what he meant was he was going to make Tampa fly. And I think he did that. I really do. Look at our downtown core, and I think you can see exactly what he meant. I'd like to make Tampa soar. So in answer to your question, the first part, I think downtown was his #1 item, the best thing he did. But secondly, going around neighborhoods now that I've been running, although I love the new park, I was at a function there last week in the Crew House. It's beautiful, it's great, but a lot of neighborhoods feel they've been disenfranchised. They feel they've been ignored. They don't think things are happening in their own neighborhoods. They're not getting basic services, and yet the city built a brand new $35 million park, didn't even use the money to possibly pay down the debt. So that's what I would say. I would not build a new park like that.
Thank you.
I think there's no question, and you're hearing the theme today, that his greatest achievement has been not just the way the city feels about itself, but of the way that we can come together in our urban core and celebrate in these fabulous new parks that we have that are all connected by the Riverwalk. And it's the work of many years, building on the shoulders of many mayors. It is not something that just he did, but I think that we've really seen the results of it during his administration. I think the thing that he does not get enough credit for is the fact that the city has had 13 increases in its bond rating across all of its funds. And that means that you, the taxpayers, are ultimately getting more for the dollars that you pay in, because the city is paying the lowest possible interest on everything that it finances. And those 13 bond rating increases happen directly because the mayor and the city council make prudent budget decisions.
Thank you.
I think that he doesn't get enough credit for having to go through all of those years of budget cuts and still being able to provide stellar services to the community. People don't understand how difficult it is to make those decisions on budget cuts. And I don't think that he got enough credit for that, or the spending in neighborhoods. You know, the perception is that he focused only on downtown, but spent more in the neighborhoods than the previous administrations. And also, what I would have done differently was communicate about the park. You know, people oftentimes talk about anything that a mayor, a visionary, has made a decision on. People will criticize things that are going to pay through the years. Mayor Greco made a few of those decisions as well. Nobody liked the aquarium when it was first built. Nobody liked the convention center when it was first built. Nobody liked the Performing Arts Center. I just would have communicated more about the Julian B. Lane Park and the jewel that would be in our community for decades and decades to come.
Thank you. We do have another question. Katie had one.
Hi, Katie Odobesa, and this question is for Jane Castor. Jane, your partner Anna Cruz works for a pro-Trump lobbying firm and heads its office in Tampa. The same firm Pam Bondi works for out of DC. A couple of years ago, when you were considering a possible run for mayor of Tampa, a city that loves Democrats, you switched your party affiliation from Republican after being a Republican for over 30 years and became a Democrat. Aren't you really a Republican clothed in Democratic attire in order to gain votes?
Well, I'm not sure my answer will be as long as that question. But I was a Republican, and after the Tea Party. Thank you for reminding me
Respectful,
of that.
please. Thank you.
And when the Tea Party came along, that's when I switched. I am a fiscally conservative individual and a socially liberal. So I did switch my party to, thank you, I did switch my party to Democrat. I'm not sure what the first part, what Ballard has to do with anything. I'm not sure that anybody's, okay.
They won the state
Okay.
for Trump.
Okay. If any, all right, come on now, okay? You want to at the microphone? Yes. So I don't think there's anyone in the room that would question the political affiliation of the Cruz family. And she runs the Democratic arm of that particular company. So that's my answer.
Thank you.
All right, a lighter question for all of you. In St. Pete, they have a mayor and a vice mayor. Oh, by the way, I'm Deborah Belanca. I introduced myself. Thank you. They have a mayor and a vice mayor. So my question for you is would you consider that here? And if so, out of the candidates here, who would you pick for your vice?
matter what order we go in? Okay, so if I would consider that, sure, I would consider that. Look at the rate that our city is growing at this particular time. So it is something that you have to look at, because as the chief of police, I had assistant chiefs and on down to run an organization of 1,300. This city is much bigger and much more complex, and it's growing by the minute. So that certainly would be a consideration. And if I have to pick one, I would have to pick Harry.
Thank you. You know, I think that there will be a time and a place for reorganization. I've said that in the first 90 days, I would not make any major changes because we're going to need to get through the budget negotiations with the bargaining units and also produce a budget to City Council. I actually think that one of the most important things we can do, if we entertain the idea of a deputy mayor or something like that, is to reach into the minority community and make sure that there's true diversity at the top of the mayor's office. So, with all due respect to all of the wonderful people up here, I don't know if that's the pool that I would be looking to for that type of a position. But I can tell you flat out that I have enormous respect for all of these people, and they all would bring something to the table in that kind of a position. Especially the nice lady to my left that mentioned it.
Well, the good news for you, Harry, is if Jane wins, you got a job. I got to go back to being just Dickie Greco.
No, the city council members cannot work for the city for
It's a joke, Harry. Don't get into a debate about it. Bottom line is this. I would certainly agree. Any of these persons would make a good vice mayor. I intend to have at least one, if not two, vice mayors or deputies mayors. While I could not pick anyone on this panel because they do not, I think, reflect what I think should be reflected in a vice mayor position. I have stated to Yvette Lewis, etc., that I would put, I believe, at least one African American as a vice mayor and possibly then a person of some other type of minority background as the other, because I think it's much more reflective of our community as a whole.
I'd be more than willing to look into that, because as we grow, we're going to need help up here. We can't do this thing all year long. I do have to share the sentiment, though, that I'm about diversity, and I'm also about anti-establishment. And I can't stress how important that is. I mean, I'm very optimistic about our city, and yet I understand, especially being in this race now, starting to see firsthand how deep corruption can go, that I would want to find somebody who is not corruptible, who is not a part of the establishment, who is somebody who reflects the diversity in this city. And the person that I would be selecting is actually raising her hand right there. Connie Burton. Damn right. She's a fighter. I like her. She's anti-establishment, and I have tremendous respect for her. She can't be bought. I love her.
I have given this quite a lot of thought already, and I would be open to the idea of having a vice mayor or deputy mayor. That is something, if you remember, the existing mayor talked about 8 years ago. And the thought that I have given this goes along with what I said to you just a little while ago about East Tampa and West Tampa. I believe in diversity, and I would select a person of color if I did something like this. They have been neglected in East Tampa, and it's a tragedy, and we all need to do better on something like that, so that's what I would do.
You know, incumbent in your question is something, you gotta remember, when we run government, it isn't just a title. If you're just gonna make a title, you can call anybody anything you want, and they don't have any power, it doesn't mean anything. As an example, when they were running for governor this past year, there was some discussion about Rick Kreisman being the lieutenant governor, and that would have created a crisis in which the deputy mayor would have taken over who was not an elected official. And I don't believe in doing any of that. So it would have to go through a charter to change that. But I will say that Bill Poe, who was the mayor back in the 70s, had someone that was there specifically dealing with the African American community here. And it continued onward, all the way through Sandy Friedman's administration, and then it stopped. And I don't think that we have done enough to make sure that we have someone that answers for a very large segment of our society that we have not served as well as we can. And I think that it's important that we put someone in there that reports directly to the mayor that looks at those interests. Thank you.
No, I won't have a deputy mayor. I'm running for mayor to fix 30 years of mess. Seriously, I have been in the development business. I've been a county commissioner, and I've tried to work through the city government, and it's a mess. The development structure we have is awful. The tax structure is awful. This city's very good at putting tax burdens on working families and letting developers and the wealthy off the hook. It's got to change. We got to restructure how we do things. I'm not interested in being a cheerleader. I'm interested in being a quarterback. I will be on the field working. You'll see me less at river cuttings and chicken dinners and more working with you to fix the structural problems we have to create a government that works in the 21st century city. I want to work. I don't want to be played at mayor. Thank you.